Good afternoon. My name is Rodriguez Leonard, and I'm an instructional coach with SRED. I've worked for SRED 2 years, and I worked with them. I live in Birmingham, Alabama, and we are in our district now. I've been there for 5 years. I taught middle school and high school in Birmingham, and 3 of those years were middle school as it relates to SRED. Final 2 that I had in high school. So, SRED 1, we over, several reviews but I enjoy working for SRED because we get to do this type of work and we go and see other instructional practices around the United States. So, I do enjoy that. You didn't come to this session to hear about all of that, so I'll get to the business of today, and that is our dynamic presenter, Ms. Michelle Sellers, who hails from, she's not from Montgomery, Alabama, but that's where she works, and she has taught in that system for 8 years, and just from going in her room, she has a relationship with students, and 2, she embodies best practices. When I grow, I always learn something. She's telling me about something that I probably should be telling other people, but she is just that type of information source. So today, her title is here. We all agree to probably multiple degrees, so we can read that. But we know that AI is here, and it is its implications are already in the classroom as it relates to students who are not even on grade level, but turning into wonderful papers that you know they did right. And they can't tell you the first letter of a word that has more, the first, we'll leave that alone. But again, you know where I'm going with that. So she's going to help us today incorporate AI into our classrooms. Without further ado,
thank you. Yeah, like Mr. Leonard said, I, obviously from my accent, I am not from the South. I am originally from Washington State. And as a result of, you've been out in that part of the country, we're very techy. I think it's something in the DNA. One of my first jobs out of college was actually working for Microsoft doing tech support. I'll age myself a little bit. I was on the Internet Explorer 4 launch team, which means when Internet Explorer 4 came on, it was the first integrated web browser, and I was on the team that was offering tech support on it from day 1. And so I learned very quickly how to break things in order to fix it. And I learned not to be afraid of technology, very much an early adopter. A little about that, me and my educational background. I'm a second career educator. I stayed home with my kids, and then after years of telling my husband how to be a teacher, I decided to go back and get my teaching degree. And I have an EDS in instructional tech, and I'm working on my doctorate in leadership with focus in technology at the University of Alabama. I have no preference to Alabama or Auburn, so please don't ask me. I am active on social media as well, so if you want to give me a follow, I'm always sharing ideas. And I know when I first found out about AI, I was like, no way. That is just... Like, what were your guys' reactions when you found out about ChatGPT?
My reaction was, how do I best recognize my students using it to plagiarize?
Right, so we immediately went to cheating, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the first thing we all went with, like, oh my gosh.
It's like the big question on AI, right? Is it going to replace us? Is it going to?
And I think this is where a lot of us are.
All the stuff you take for granted, it's not gonna last. Imagine a world of permanent darkness, where machines control man's destiny. Imagine you were the only one who could stop it. But before you do, something terrible has to happen.
All military systems have been infected.
This can't be happening.
Are you going to kill me?
No. My mission is to protect you.
Oh, God. She's coming. TX, can you find a way to destroy her?
Unlikely. I'm an obsolete design.
TX, let's go.
corrupted my system.
Machines, they're starting to take over.
Judgment Day. The end of the world. It's today, 3 hours from now. Get away from me. Now!
What is your mission?
To ensure the survival of John Connor.
You are about to fail that mission.
You don't have to do this.
You don't want to do this.
Desire is irrelevant. I am a machine.
How do you feel that? Deep in our souls. I thought the rising machines, that AI is taking over, what are we gonna do? We feel like it's out of our control, right? The machines are rising up against us. And like I heard your conversation earlier, the math teachers have been dealing with this for a long time. Calculators, that there's that app that scans the math problem and it immediately pops up. This is not new at all. What we have to do is start adjusting what we're doing. And I like TikTok.
Replace teachers. Is like the big question on AI, right? Is it going to replace us? Is it going to replace teachers? It's not going to replace teachers, so we don't need to worry about that. Our teachers are safe. But what it will do is make teachers' jobs easier, and I think that we can all agree that that's something that we could get behind. So, one of the things that we know from teachers is that there's a ton of repetitive heavy lifting work that they're required to do. ChatGPT can actually help them automate that, so do it for them in a much easier way. I'll give you an example. So we had a high school teacher tell us that they had taken some of their students' assignments, put it into ChatGPT and said, give me some feedback on these assignments. And what the teacher found was that the feedback was super useful, super accurate, and better than what he thought he could have done. So the difference is, instead of thinking like I'm replaced, it's, oh, okay, well, I just freed up a whole bunch of hours that I could use to actually do what I do best, which is supporting kids in the classroom. So it's like, I like to explain it to teachers and explain it to people, it's like a personal assistant in the classroom that you can do all kinds of creative things with.
How many of you guys have tried ChatGPT to automate a task? My English teachers, have you put the feedback of student essays into ChatGPT and see to get feedback?
No, but I'm willing to try.
Yeah, I want to try. When I was first doing this and I started putting student work samples in, the feedback got less accurate because it started thinking that the student work samples were correct and the bad grammar and the bad content was correct. So you have to be careful and always double check. There are some tools I'm going to show you today where it is designed for teachers to give student feedback. And you're going to play with one of them today too. But think about what tasks we can automate in the classroom. I want you guys to kind of marinate on that, of what happens during your day that we can automate. What are some things we can automate? What sucks up most of your time in the classroom?
Grading.
Grading. So we want something that's going to grade for us, right? Creating assessments.
Creating rubrics.
Rubrics. What else?
Lesson plan.
Lesson plan. Lesson planning is a beast. Yeah. So we can already think off the top of our heads some type of AI. ChatGPT, is that the only AI that's out there? No, we're going to start using ChatGPT, I think, a lot like we use the term Google. We're going to go Google that, but we can be using Bing or whatever other search engine out there. We're going to start just saying ChatGPT to mean AI in general. That's my prediction, because people hear ChatGPT and they kind of have a general idea of what it is. So I think that's a direction we might be headed. Where are my English teachers? Yeah, there might be more English teachers in here today. What have you guys seen coming out of your classrooms as far as, have you seen the kids using ChatGPT? And I know with the grade I teach, it's really easy to catch because it uses words and it spells them correctly and it punctuates correctly. So it's kind of a big red flag for middle schoolers. But what about the older kids? How are you catching them? Do you need Turnitin to catch it?
No.
Half So like big words was one for my lower level classes, but one of the things that I had heard from another teacher and read a review of ChatGPT is that it doesn't personalize things. And for the assignment I had given, it was a persuasive essay. And I teach chemistry, so it was a persuasive essay in chemistry. And I think they just didn't expect me to catch it because I don't grade English. But I was like, what you wrote one, what does this word mean, what does that word mean? Couldn't tell me that. But then they also couldn't tell that it wasn't a personalized I believe or I think. So they missed that whole part of the rubric. Okay. Because they didn't have a personalized thing.
As I teach AP language and composition, so it took me a while with brand new students getting new writing. I assume they're decent writers and they're giving me like functional essays, and so now I did the wrong thing. I buried my head in the sand and pretended that AI didn't exist for a while. And so it took me a while before I started to learn, oh, that isn't how you write, because I have a high-level writers in my class.
So something that I heard also too, which I think we need to like change our perspective, kind of goes with changing our perspective about our role as educators, getting away from that stage on the deliverer of information. So, it's easy, like if we tell a kid to write a 500-word essay on how to build a doghouse, they can Google that or ChatGPT it or whatever. But a teacher that I talked to, we were at another session, we were talking about the skill set that we need to be teaching them is, okay, we know you can go out and find that information, but now take that paragraph or take that essay of that information, and now you have to summarize that, put it in your own words, extract data, analyze from it. So making them manipulate the information rather than finding the information.
Right. And if you come to my sessions, you're going to see this all day and tomorrow too, because I really believe this is something that we need to understand, is the T3 framework for innovation. And I really appreciate your comments, because when we talk about the basic level of technology innovation, we are automating tasks and we're teaching students how to consume information. ChatGPT is automating our assignment tasks for students. We have to show them how to transform what they're getting from ChatGPT into something different. And that's a completely different teaching skill set. How to teach students how to utilize that information effectively, because this is what they're going to be doing in jobs in the future. When they're asked to write something, they generally probably will not be writing it themselves. They're going to be turning to some type of AI to automate that task. So we have to change the skill that we're teaching. And from there, all sorts of things are possible with AI. Let students become content creators, let them interact with the technology, but our skills become, how as a teacher can we help students to know the appropriate use of these technologies? And that's the scary part, because we weren't taught how to do that in school, were we? This was not even a thing, unless you graduated like in May. This was not anything that you prepared for at all. I mean, it's terrifying, right? So we have to figure out what to do. And my thought is,
hate to be the one to write this to you, but your teachers absolutely know. They know you didn't write that. But luckily, there is a pretty easy way to make it seem like you wrote it. First, do what you always do and just dump in the topic and have it spit this out. And then type in, rewrite that essay in the style of this essay. And copy and paste in something that you actually wrote. And it will rewrite the original essay in a way that makes it look like you actually wrote it.
yeah. Let that sink in for a moment. I love your comment, because you really just write this out. And then they put their essay into ChatGPT, right? I've had ChatGPT, I told it to write something like an 8th grader would write it. I got so many like LOLs and bet in the essay. I was like, okay, so this is writing it like an 8th grader. So what are we supposed to do? It's out here. We can't put the genie back in the bottle. So what do? It would blow your mind if I would tell you, let them do it. Let them use ChatGPT to write the essay. And let me show you why. because we already know they're going to do it. Day one, first week of school, give the students a prompt. Everybody go ahead and scan my QR code here. And I'm going to need a volunteer to help me. This is going to take you to an essay ChatGPT wrote about this book, Ghost, from Jason Reynolds. This is one I like to use in the classroom. And we're going to take this, the first day of school, I would say, let's go ahead and write this prompt. Everybody put it into ChatGPT, and let's see what ChatGPT puts out for us. All right? I'm going to pop it up here to get it. Wrong button. Can you get it from there? Got it. It's just going to take you to my little essay here. So we see, first of all, red flag, right? First sentence. And you're going to approach this as, okay, kids, we know you're going to put ChatGPT to good work this year. And we see the word titular character. Already we know that's not going to work. So what I want students to do, let's first remove every word you don't know what it means. So go ahead and start removing words that you don't think an 8th grader might know. Or phrasing that you think is a little too complex for the kids to do. So we're losing things, right? This one's not too bad. This one, I've seen some really, really bad examples of strong word choice where it's all over the place. So we took out the formatting, so we know that there's already something wrong. We know that the title should probably be italicized. There's something going on. You go ahead and open up to chapter 1. Actually, no. Let's scroll down. Let's look down here at the bottom. Chapter 16. Can you tell me what happens in chapter 16? Go ahead and open up the book to chapter 16. Tell me what page it's on. You're smiling.
Is there a chapter 16?
There is not a chapter 16. So that whole thing, when you take this whole part about chapter 16, and in this passage, we know that whole paragraph has to go away. So we can have somebody go, that whole third paragraph, there's no chapter 16. I can tell you if you read the book, he actually steals the pair of shoes, they don't break. And he doesn't cheat. He feels guilty because he stole the shoes. So if you read the book, you know that this isn't correct. So we can go ahead and take out that piece of textual evidence. So I would go through this with the students and show them what we're left with after we fact-checked ChatGPT on our essay. Are we left with a whole lot? No. But what can we do with what's left? Is it useful? We can transform and build around it. We can put what we call scaffolding, sentence stems. We're left with a somewhat decent thesis statement, right? Self-blame for an incident that happens. That's true. He does blame himself in the book. So we're left with very bare bones scaffolding that we can use to help students who are afraid of writing know where to start. So think of this as a tool to scaffold for students. And once they see that a lot of the information in their essay is pretty much gone, that kind of takes the wind out of their sails a little bit. but you have the one that thinks he's gonna go through and put it into his own writing style. What do you do with that kid? Well, you come down here and you show them how to use the rubric. And go through with the rubric. I have a link to a rubric down here if it's gonna open for me. This is just a generic analysis rubric that I pulled up for this. Go through it with rubric then with your students. And you will see that they don't have an introduction that grabs attention. That for 8th grade, it's probably at a 3. They've got a thesis, they have a topic sentence, but the rest of the essay is a 0. So even if they had all of that stuff left in, if you show them on the rubric, they're going to see that that ChatGPT essay did not get them the grade they wanted. So if you were to grade it with the rubric, it would probably still fail. And I think if you've seen students turn it in and you don't catch it, if you're being really strict with that rubric, they will probably fail the essay regardless. So what are other options? Any other ways that we can let them write the essay? It's kind of scary, right? Letting the kids write the essay with ChatGPT. So what are we left with to grade? Not a whole lot, right? So then we give it back to the students and let them build from there. Now the other option, what if we let the kids write with ChatGPT? We said, you know what? I'm going to lean into this. What could possibly go wrong, right? Is there a way that we can use our skills as educators to still let the kids write with ChatGPT?
And write an outline, and then
Okay.
ChatGPT will use their outline to create.
Excellent. Yes. That's perfect. Let the students take notes by hand. Okay. Let them take notes. Let them write an outline. And give them the choice. There are kids who love to write, who may end up growing up to be an English teacher or some kind of job where they write. But there are other kids who are never, ever going to have to know what is happening with the Friar Lawrence and Romeo and Juliet. So why are we making them write essays about this if they're never going to use this again? When what they will need to use again is how to use ChatGPT. We have to shift our thinking into what skills are the kids actually using for the 21st century. One of the mistakes that we make in education is that we say we're preparing the kids for the jobs of today. But the problem is, in 4 years from now, those jobs are going to be completely obsolete because technology is changing so quickly. So we have to change our framework. Yes, essay writing is important, but just as important are the skills of analysis that we're teaching the kids. Because the kids are going to have to know how to analyze, and they have to know how to differentiate between good information and bad information. And that's the skill we need to use ChatGPT to teach them. So let the kids take the notes, grade it by hand, or outline it by hand, and give them a choice. Are you going to write this yourself, or are you going to let ChatGPT do it? And if they use ChatGPT, they have to use the rubric to revise what the AI wrote, to use whatever academic language they need to make it sound more like their own voice. So it's a great opportunity to talk about voice in writing, to talk about tone and word choice, to get that specific academic vocabulary you need in chemistry class or social studies to make sure it fits the job. And then your grading becomes focused on the pre-writing phase, that planning phase. And honestly, it's that phase, that planning phase, that trips up most of our students because they struggle with something called executive function. You guys know what executive function is? You're nodding. You want to share what it is?
It's because I have AD, that's why.
Yes.
It's like all of the basic tasks, like time management and planning things and knowing where to start.
Right. You have
All
something
the
called
basic
time blindness. Have you guys heard that phrase? That time you have that friend who's constantly late, and nothing you can do will make them on time. They probably have time blindness, like time does not exist for them in the same way it exists for you. But our kids, when they get stuck with writing, it's that pre-writing phase, that executive function phase, where they don't know where to start, that's going to get them every time. And when it comes down to it, the real world skill that they need to know is actually the planning. Because they have to know how to plan and how to reach the goals. So focus on that, and that becomes an important skill for them in the long term. Questions so far?
Question. So if two kids and myself and another student enter the same instruction into ChatGPT at the same time, we both say, give us an essay on ghost. What are the chances that we would get like the same or similar essay? It could just...
It'll give you, even slightly wording something different on the prompt will vastly change the output. So there have been teachers that are playing with getting very specific with the prompt and what it's asking ChatGPT to do. And it's getting the different outcomes. So I've seen early on, some of the teachers on TikTok were feeding it prompts and trying to adjust it to get the parameters so that it would be cheat proof. Yes?
If it's the exact same input, you get the exact same output? Okay, that's right.
Yeah, it's because even just a few seconds, the machine has learned. And we're going to talk about that in a moment as we get to a little later things. So yeah, taking that and just leaning into ChatGPT is something that I would encourage you to do. As a student myself, I have used ChatGPT so much. It's not just saving the time, but for differentiation. I talk about executive function in my sessions a lot because I have ADHD and some other exceptionalities that for me as a student make learning hard. And I struggle with a big block of text. And when I've been doing my courses, I don't know if you've been to, when you're in grad school, those passages are not short. And they can be rather terrifying as you're reading studies, and I'm going through this and my brain is overloaded. And so I will take what I have from my professors and I will put it into ChatGPT. And let's go ahead and see. Here is one of my prompts. I asked it, after I put in this really, really long prompt, I said, outline it, please. And it gave me an outline of what I was reading. And then I said to summarize it. So it gave me a summary that was still a lot to read. So I had to write a different type of outline. And then I go back and read it again. So this made it so that it was easier for me to understand as a student. So how does that apply to our students? How can we use this for our students to differentiate? We can do the same thing for them with whatever text we're reading. Put it into ChatGPT, ask it for a 5-sentence summary, get some bulleted lists off of it, outline it, and we can give it to our students who receive accommodations, and they can read it before class and have an idea of what you're going to be talking about. So instead of giving them the notes to take along, why not have them pre-read something so that they can participate in the conversation too? And I think that's something that we often forget about with our kids who are differentiated learners, that they can still work at the same level as their peers very often if we give them the right supports. They want to participate, so we can use ChatGPT to help them with that. We can ask it to adjust the text complexity of what we're reading, identify potential problematic vocabulary words, and then give them the definitions. And there's one that will also give the picture. And it can create questions. So these are all some things that we can do to help scaffold and differentiate for our students. And it's automated. How long does it take you to differentiate something? forever, or as my kids say, 5-ever, right? So there are some, you don't have to just rely on ChatGPT to do this. Here are some tools. Diffit.me is amazing. Search for a topic, be specific, give an article, any text or excerpt, and then it's going to ask for the language output on this. It goes higher or lower, and it will differentiate the resource for you. So instead of using ChatGPT, if your district has it blocked, like a lot of districts are already blocking it, but it's available on Snapchat, so unless they're taking your students' phones away, they have access to AI no matter what. This is a great tool that will differentiate the assignment, automate that task for you. Okay, Question Well. Have you guys seen Question Well yet? This one lets the AI write the questions for you. If you want a very specific Kahoot, Gimkit, whatever, it will ask the questions, create the questions for you, and then you can upload it onto the game. So you're no longer, if you want to have a Kahoot specific to a passage that you want to read, you can put it here, and it does all of that work of creating the game for you. That to me is a teacher time saver. So would you say that's a teacher time saver or a differentiation tool? Okay, I'm going to write some of these on over here. I was going to have us split up into a group. So, and where would we put the Diffit? Is that the differentiation over here? Yeah. Get a volunteer to write Diffit.me on the board back here. Yeah. Diffit.me. And the new one that I found, I was using this tool when it first came out and it was absolute garbage. But in 6 months, it has just absolutely changed. It's called CurryPod. And CurryPod is an AI that will create a slide deck of lessons for you that are interactive. And what makes this absolutely amazing is that it will give students feedback, just like ChatGPT. So if you're doing an exit ticket like you will today, it's going to give you feedback at the end of the day on whatever you're teaching. So that to me was pretty darn cool. That saves me a lot of time, right? So I'm not having to do student feedback. If you're going to have kids write a paragraph, stick it in CurryPod. Tell them you want it to check for content or you want to have it checked for grammar. It will go directly to the standard that you're wanting to do and give accurate feedback. So that saves me a lot of time, right? But it gives differentiation for the students. And we'll get to those executive function tasks in a moment. Questions so far? Checking how we're doing on time. So a lot of our students do struggle with executive function, and they need support on all of these types of tasks.
Does this fall into like a soft skills thing too? To
A
some
little
degree?
bit, yeah. Because these are skills that everybody needs to know. We need to know all these time management tasks. But for your kids who have ADHD, they really need support in this. I can't even stress it enough. Half the time the kids do know the content, but they are struggling with self-regulation. That's why they tap, move around. There's something going on in the room that's keeping them from being able to focus. That task management and organization not knowing where to get started. So how can AI help us with this?
I don't know if it's AI. I'm guessing it probably is AI, but I just found something the other day that it's Goblin Tools.
Yes, I'm going to talk about that today.
You can tell it a task, like something like I just said pack for Orlando trip, and it'll give you a list of stuff, like the things that you need to do first, and then you can go back in and say, oh, with this one I need to add another thing underneath it. But like that's, how do I do this? Where do I start?
Right, and that's what I love AI for, with Goblin Tools especially. Goblin Tools allows you to adjust how much support you need to complete the task. So I'm going to put that over here. But this is one that's also for me, is also that teacher time saver, because again, this is goblin.tools. It will, I'm like for, they call it little chili peppers and the nerve spicy ranges. I need all the support, and so it's gonna break down that task for me. Like if I'm dreading like lesson planning, I would say, hey, I need to plan this lesson, but I've got all these other things going on in my brain right now. It will guide me to specifically what I need to do. So how do we use that for students? What does that mean for our students?
I think if you're even in science, like you're doing an experiment or something, and you have to use AI to even just like what needs to be done before I do this, without like giving it to them. So a lot of times we just give it to them. I think that's
Yeah, having the students use the AI to come up with lab rules or the steps in the lab, is that something that could possibly happen? We can say these are the experiment we want to run. Come up with some steps. What kind of doors are we opening if we're showing kids how to problem solve that way for themselves?
The more they do it, the more they'll be able to do it on their own.
Right, and that's what we want. We want that automaticity for our students where they're not turning to us like little baby birds with their mouths open waiting for us to dispense information. We want them, as I tell my kids, not living in your parents' house at 40 and borrowing their Netflix password, right? We want them to be self-sufficient adults. I used to say 30, but then I realized I have millennials in here, and my brother who's 30 still lives with my mom. So he works in education. So I was like, ooh, I can't use that as my milestone anymore. We're going to say 40 because we're going to be, cognizant of the economy today. But not everybody's going to be able to, be out of their parents' house at a reasonable time. But we want our kids to be able to function as adults and to be able to say, you know what, I need help with this task. What tools are available to help me accomplish that? And AI is going to step into that role because I know as someone who struggles with this and as a parent, I don't know how to teach those skills to my kids. And how many times have we said about our parents, why wasn't this child taught this at home? Because maybe the parents didn't have those skills themselves. And so now let's let the computer step in and let's help us facilitate that for the kids to learn. So it's again about using the right technology tool for the right task. And not just using AI as a gimmick to get us through, we get to play with AI in the classroom. Because if you're using AI in the classroom, your administrator is going to come to you and ask you why. Why are you allowing your kids to write essays with ChatGPT? Why are you allowing your kids to get on something called Goblin Tools? What is going on in your classroom? What is the educational benefit of this? And I want you to be able to think about, I use this tool because it's going to help my students collaborate. It's going to help them set goals. So when we think about these tools, be very cognizant of why you're picking that tool so that when you have to be accountable to someone later on, you have an answer for, we're using this because my students struggle with time management. We're using this because I need to be able to differentiate for these students. And when we talk about differentiation, we're not just talking about the students who have special needs, but we're talking about moving kids forward and increasing the text complexity. Because accelerating students isn't just about giving them more work to do. It's about asking them to think a little bit further. I think that's something that we sometimes miss the mark with our gifted kids, is we just pile the work onto them and then they don't want to do honors classes because it's just more work, right? So let's think about what we can do to push them forward in deeper thinking or thinking outside the box. So take that time to, get a little creative with what we can do with these technology tools. And I also like this for the breaks and attention management. How many of you guys need a break during the day? Right? You're like, I'm taking a brain break. So there are tools that can reward positive behavior with AI. Like, I will set a timer for myself. I will let myself watch 5 minutes worth of TikTok. Set the timer, TikTok goes off. Or else I'm going to be doom scrolling for like an hour and a half. And nothing ever gets done because I have time blindness and I don't realize it's been that long. There are some things that our kids can do. We can set them up in the classroom to give them a reward, and AI can monitor it for us instead of us being on it 24/7 on the classroom time. And then we're helping them meet their different academic and behavior goals.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I don't know if this applies to anybody in here. I teach a couple of dual credit classes, and, you know, I really hear you. What I'm concerned about is, we don't use Turnitin at my school currently, but I know that, you know, for that 30% that may go to college, how do you reconcile using the tools in this way with, say, for instance, all my dual credit students have to do a research paper?
Right, so I think of it more as a brainstorming tool.
Okay, so and an organizational tool.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Especially since if you put in the research paper, have them go through and do the research paper topic, and then go look up the journal articles that it references. They will all be fake.
Exactly, no, that's one of the reasons I figured it out with my dual credit kids, is because, first of all, the research is always very general.
Right.
You don't get.
And it always matches perfectly to what you're trying to prove.
Exactly, and it's perfect, of course, paper, and if you tell them to do it in an MLA format, ChatGPT really hasn't caught up with the various formats.
It's getting there.
Yeah, okay.
But always go through and have them fact check. I hate to go back to the days when, again, when dinosaurs ruled the earth and I had to turn in a research paper and we had to go to the university library and print off all the copies of the research and turn it in. That may be something that we're going to have to say, you have to give a PDF link to the research article that you used, so that way you're not going back and searching. So you can, again, have them go that step of providing the fact check for yourself. But there are tools. AI is getting smarter, and I don't think it's going to be too long. It's doing something now called scraping. And scraping means you can tell ChatGPT or whatever AI it is to go look up information on a certain website, and it will go and read the website. And so it will start producing data from that. That's a very basic definition of what it is. Before, it used to say it couldn't do that. I would say before, like 3 months, 3-4 months ago, it was not producing that information, and now it can go out. It's there is a copyright lawsuit happening right now in California with ChatGPT because of how it learned to write. It went onto a website of what they considered unpublished authors, but it was authors who published electronically, and it's free. You don't have to pay for the books. And ChatGPT, they just fed it all this information without those authors' permission. And it started scraping content from something called AO3, which, if you guys know what Wattpad is?
No.
Wattpad it's like a fan fiction. And AO3 kind of is like fan fiction to the next level. So it's now scraping those websites, looking for unpublished authors and getting that information. So it's constantly evolving. So there are a lot of ethical concerns. If you have your students write on Google Docs, the AI in Google is scraping your students' information. So those are some other concerns that we need to consider because we don't know, there's no laws really in FERPA with student information. Those are still just happening.
And I would add, in one of our school divisions from my state, there was an issue where a teacher fed it into the plagiarism GPT, and the parents said you didn't have the student's permission to feed their information, and so the parents were trying to sue the teacher for taking the copyright.
Right. These are all sorts of different layers of
and
concerns.
students were under a certain age because of the whole law.
So like under 13, the students cannot consent. So if you are using using AI in the elementary school, you are walking a very fine line.
So you can't check it, you're not supposed to run their papers through a checker.
Well, the issue was she did it without their permission. The child was under a certain age, there was some FERPA because what information was in there, identifying students possibly, I mean, there was a lot.
Right, there's all sorts of, this is legally and ethically murky right now. The laws have not caught up to the technology. So there is concern with like Turnitin because it saves that data. And so you'll come up as fully plagiarized if you borrow an older sibling's essay and turn it in. Turnitin will snag that. But it retains every student essay that you feed into it. And so again, that becomes this ethical, gray area. The laws haven't caught up to where we are with this. So that's something to really be mindful of as you're using the different AI tools. I want to talk about caring for yourself, automating tasks. I hate contacting parents, especially on the phone.
Yeah.
I hate it, hate it, hate it. So, I had AI writing letters. I have phone call scripts now and possible responses. This is my self-care. I go down, I have it for text messages, missing work, every type of assignment that I can think of that I would give reason to contact parents, I have put it in and have a form letter on ChatGPT that it wrote for me. All the emotion is taken out, all the feelings, so the parents can't come back and say, you said something bad about my kid. This is a form letter. It is a script, and it's something that helps me because this is a task I absolutely hate to do. So anything that I can automate, I have ChatGPT there. The lesson plans, the gradings, all of this can be done in some type of AI nowadays. And that frees up time for us to actually teach. That's what we're getting paid to do, right? Not all the planning, all the meetings. What if we could just have everything via email that was written by ChatGPT? If you guys have been in a meeting that could have been an email, let's just let ChatGPT do it. I mean, you think I'm joking, but how much of our procedures could be handled by AI? A lot of the things that we do, notifying parents about it, those tasks, let AI do it. Now, I have a wakelet for you that I have divided the AI material. I was going to have you guys get up and move around, but I'm not sure if we're going to have enough space and time to do that. That divides up the teacher time savers, student executive function, differentiation, and high interest activities. I want to let you guys all grab this. And it's constantly growing. And I have so many tools on this. There are, if you guys don't follow Alice Keeler on social media and you're interested in any type of tech use in the classroom, she is absolutely someone you need to follow. She has little stickers that says a spreadsheet can do that or something like that. She loves spreadsheets. Keeler. She's not heavy on TikTok, she's on Twitter, and she has a website where she does all sorts of technology tools. Alice Keeler. And I'm going to pull up one of her things on this so you can see what I'm talking about. She is AliceKeeler.com. And she has 100 prompts for teachers on ChatGPT. And it goes through all of these things that you could potentially ask ChatGPT to respond to. And the parents bring you questions about things. Even talk about, what are some of the best practices? So she's helping you, basically it's ChatGPT, like something we might Google, and you have to go through all of this really terrible information to get what we really need. And so she's asking ChatGPT to do those things. We don't have to scroll through as much. Create learning materials. Ask it for low-cost apps to supplement their lessons. to differentiate. And so these are the exact prompts that she's found effective for getting things done. Because like I said earlier, if you change a little bit of something in the prompt, ChatGPT's response will be different. So these are things that she has done herself and can verify this is going to get a usable response. But I love her website for finding pretty much anything. And I will admit, I did use AI to help me with this presentation. Yes, I asked it for some different topics and headings I should do, specifically what should I include about executive function, what are teachers going to want to know. So I actually was going to give a speech about AI, and I had AI write me the speech. And somebody goes, oh, this is really well written, and then they never got the chance to give it. So I was kind of bummed. So that is one of my favorite tools. The other one, Twee is in beta. But you guys have seen the Ed puzzles, right? But sometimes there's a video and there's no Ed puzzle questions, but there's a really cool video. This will make the questions for you. But again, this is still in beta. So yeah, it goes through and it shows you all the different questions, lead-in activities. This one's kind of fun. I'm excited about playing with this one. And then, what was that?
Yeah, a lot of these AI tools don't work in the second language yet.
Okay.
They're working on it. I teach French and French immersion.
Oh,
so
it's there.
It's word translation matching.
Yeah.
Something. But yeah, a lot of them are just catching up. But language teachers are used to translate. And
Right.
That's
So this is a YouTube and article summary. It's a Chrome extension you can add on that will summarize the video so you can give it to your students. Again, to give them a heads up on what they're learning. And there's some fun ones like turning a meme generator. You can chat with different historical figures. Yeah. This one, you can convert your notes into quizzes or flashcards automatically. So think of that student who can't read their own handwriting, a great tool to help them with that. So many tools. But the one I want you guys to play with before we leave today, in about 8 minutes left, we're going to do this activity. And it's the music. You can scan that code, and it's going to give you. Sorry? Did I click the button wrong? So, okay, that went really fast. Nobody answered, no responses. I clicked the wrong button. So we're going to try that again without me clicking 50,000 wrong buttons. Okay. And I even practiced with this beforehand so that I wouldn't do the dumb thing with the technology. Okay, so I click here, wait for participants to join. And it's going to ask you to give your real name, but your other name is not going to, you're going to be anonymous with this response. But I will have access to the name that you put in. So this is a way for students to get assessed without having it be for everybody. All right. I know. We've got helpful iPhone. We have everybody on here? No. Cheering parrot, fast volcano. Okay, so I'm going to hit here, and it's giving you 1 minute to answer this question on your screen. It should. There we go. So you give you 1 minute. And like I said, when CuriePod first came out, it could not do this. It did not have the feedback. Okay. try Carrie.live and then try that again, just go back there again. About 26 seconds left.
See the sound market, so chat.
I have not.
Hilarious.
Is that part one?
Yes.
I have,
That's how I found out about it.
that's scary. I find that on TikTok, like, I'm sorry if I that every day. All right, we've got 29 responses, 30 responses, and then time is up. And then I click give feedback. And you guys should get some feedback on your lesson, on your response.
Thank you. Oh, wow. I feel bad.
What do we think of feedback? Oh, no. You want to just like look at a neighbor, did it work for you? How's the feedback?
Perfect. I feel so validated.
Look, we can, it says, try saying this, keep up the good work, and keep using complete sentences. I asked it to make sure you guys wrote complete sentences. And so it's going to look at the content and do that for you. So, yeah, it says, let's turn your answer to complete sentence to make it even better. You could say, so you give the chance for the kids to reassess their writing. But imagine just on the exit ticket, or they put in a paragraph response to something, and they write the paragraph in one app, just copy and paste it in there, and your feedback is done.
How hard is it to set these kinds of things up?
Okay, let's go ahead and set this up. Hit end. And okay, so I want to do something. I want to do a full lesson. What do we want to talk about on this lesson?
Using AI.
Oh, let's talk about, we're not going to do South Park.
South Park.
Something that I can't think of. Oh, look, learning objectives and standards. We can put those in too. So what do we read in 8th grade? Diary of Anne Frank. Okay, we click do magic. And it's going to do its thing and create a slide presentation for me with this tool. So slide 2, it gives me an overview of what she has, concepts, did you know?
My life just improved.
So I would say, what, about 45 seconds? And I can adjust, I can come over here and I can tell you what feedback I wanted to give on this. You can edit the slides. It was not doing it this specifically 6 months ago. It is improved dramatically. So just imagine what it's going to be like this time next year and what these capabilities are going to be. So if we have any other questions? Yes.
So as far as if administrators are, you know, I guess from their standpoint, or school district like level, like the teachers are concerned about students, but now admin may be concerned about the actual higher quality of students.
Right.
You know, like, are there any suggestions for helping admin also kind of understand?
Yeah, like the teacher's role, like where the ethical things are. Really just ask them to, I hate to say, go on social media and look how teachers are using this. Because there's not going to be a whole lot of research that's happening on this, it's still coming out. It happens. But there are books that are being published, because AI has been around for a really long time. And it's just about adjusting our expectations of what we have in the classroom. Because a lot of these things like programs, let's just face it, nobody looks for that. And if we can automate that task, then let's automate it. So the more time we can use AI effectively in the classroom, the more time we actually have to teach. Instead of doing those other tasks that are abuses of our time. So I would approach this maximizing instructional time by automating tasks. Once they're comfortable with that task automation,